Welcome to the Motivated Martial Arts Podcast. Your hosts, Jackson White and Gavin Cook, have been friends and Taekwondo training partners for over 40 years. This podcast will bring you a mixture of their life stories, martial arts, and business experiences to motivate you in life and throughout your martial arts journey. Adding in a mixture of inspiring interviews and some of the best traditional martial artists around today. So over to your hosts, the Motivated Martial Artists.
Welcome to the Motivated Martial Artists Podcast with me, Gavin Cook.
And me, Jackson White.
And today we've got Master Ray Gale in the studio with us today. So we're really excited to have Ray on. So Ray is a Taekwondo practitioner. Goes back a long time. Has been studying the art of Taekwondo for a long time. He's also one of the founder members of PUMA, which is the Professional United Martial Arts Association. So he's the founder member of that. Remember Ray from years and years ago when we used to compete on the martial arts circuit. So it's really good to have you in today, Ray.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Good to be here, and looking forward to it.
Yeah. Perfect. Good. It's been a long time. I think the last time I saw you, I was probably about 15 years old. I saw you in person. So yeah, it's great to have you on. So I'm going to kick off with the first question, and it's something that we ask all of our guests. Can you just give us a little bit about your backstory, where you grew up, what sort of environment, your schooling, and really how you got into martial arts?
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Well, most of you maybe listening or yourselves will know that my friend and colleague is Mark Ogborn, or Master Ogborn now, and we sort of really grew up together in Bristol, and we knew each other from the age of sort of 8 or 9. We've been good buddies since then. We're still good buddies now.
Well, I think your friendship is legendary. Everybody knows.
Yeah. So I've been trying to get rid of him since I was 9, and he's still hanging on in there. But we went to the same sort of junior school, and from there, even though we went to different senior schools, we still kept in touch. I have to say that I passed my 11 plus and he didn't. I'll just put that for the record. And,
just remember, we're going to get him on, so we'll have a right to redress.
Okay. So I went to a grammar. I went to a grammar school and he went to just a bog standard comp. So anyway, but we still kept good friends, and during that we were in the sort of the Cubs and Scouts. We played football and cricket together, met at the park and all sorts of stuff. So we were kids messing around, and we actually, funny enough, started our first business together on Western Pier. Well, it was the old Victorian Pier, actually, Birnbeck Pier, where we used to sell kids' toys when we were about 13, 14. His dad had an antique shop on the pier, so we used to have a contest to see who could sell the most stuff.
So a young entrepreneur even in them days, then.
Yeah, we just loved doing stuff together, and we were good buddies. And sort of as we went through the teenage years in Bristol, we both grew up in sort of very close to inner city Bristol. And once we got to sort of 15 and that sort of age, we started going out. And there was a lot of violence at that time kicking around in the city centres, and we saw a lot of that, and we were both, I suppose, what you call nice people. So we decided, well, it'd be really good to learn a martial art just in case we get in a bit of a few problems. And we actually started doing a little bit of karate. It was a very good school, actually, karate school. It was very well known in Bristol. And probably around the country at the time. It was Higashi Karate, and they had a few champions there, and they were really, really good, to be honest. That was the sort of grounding. And obviously it was a time when, Bruce Lee and the movies were on, and the usual stuff that you've probably heard so many times from guys that started in the 70s. That was the sort of catalyst, really, to push us forward. And from there we started karate, and then I actually started, when I left school, I got a job as an aircraft engineer, as an apprentice at Rolls-Royce, and started there at literally just 16. Couldn't go to sort of university. My parents couldn't afford anything like that, so I thought, right, I'm going to get a job where I could earn some money. I tell you, Rolls-Royce wages were fantastic. I was a very, very wealthy young man at that time.
Their apprentices have always been really, really good, haven't they? I mean, even today, I know people that have gone there and done apprenticeships there, and they've always sort of really looked after the apprentices there. And no, I think they're still on pretty decent wages, even now, to be honest.
Yeah. So it was great. I mean, you know, I'll come back to it, but even then, you know, at the age of sort of 19, 20, I bought a house and I had a car and I had a motorbike, and you know, I was doing all right. I was doing well. But I was at Rolls-Royce and I saw a poster with a guy flying through the air, and it said Taekwondo, the most powerful martial art in the world. I thought, well, that looks interesting. So I went along there, and one thing that sort of struck me was there were a lot of short guys there. I thought, yeah, that's the one for me, because the karate class had all these big guys in there. They were huge, and every week I used to go along and just get hurt. So I looked and I thought, yeah, I could probably stay in that class. So I started then, and then a little bit after that, I was speaking to Marcus. Oh, you've got to come along to this Taekwondo. It's just awesome. It's brilliant. You know, we do lots of kicking and stuff like that. And it seemed custom made for me because Taekwondo was a bit more dynamic, you know, kicks and so on. So yeah, I just sort of fell in love with it then, really.
Did Mark join you at that class that was full of small people? I bet they had a shot when he walked in the door then.
Well, the interesting thing is, I said to him, "Oh, you got to come." I did a couple of sessions. I said, "Oh, you got to come to this class." So he came along just to watch, and at the time they were doing some stretching, and it was the old time stretching where people were standing on you and sitting on you and pushing your legs, and there was literally grown men crying.
Yeah.
And then after the class, we were walking home, and he said, "Nah, I'm not joining that." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm not putting myself through that. You've got to be joking." So it took me a little bit time to persuade him, but eventually he did start as well.
Okay, so how old? So what drew you to the Taekwondo? You mentioned it was like you thought it was dynamic. What, you know, were you into the patterns, the sparring, the line work back in those days? Because that was a big part of martial arts then, wasn't it, in Taekwondo?
Yeah, it was huge. It was just everything about it, and I liked the different style of fitness. There seemed to be a different style. I mean, fitness has always been my game. I've always loved being fit, and I've never found it difficult to motivate myself to get out. Even now, you know, I've been out this morning. I've done my training, and I love it. And when I got there, I thought, wow, yeah, I want to do that, because the fitness side of it looked really, really good. Plus the flexibility side, and that's not saying the karate wasn't. It was really, I enjoyed the karate, but it was a very different style of class. And yes, they did do line work, and they did do you know, all the technical stuff. But because classes were longer in those days, you know, we were talking like 2-hour classes. They also did a lot of fitness stuff, which I loved, and that's really, I suppose, what drew me to it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so how old were you when you got your first degree?
Oh, first degree. Well, I got my first degree. So I must have been. I've got to think now. 21. 21. I got my first degree. Yeah.
And can you remember that grading?
In fact, no. Actually, sorry. No, I was just 20. Actually, I was just 20.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I was just 20.
Just taking a step back. So, who was your first instructor then?
My first instructor was Mike Dew. From the west of England, and our grading examiner then was Kiha Ree, Grandmaster Kiha Ree, and he used to do all the gradings for us. And yeah, I mean, the gradings were quite strict, and you know, you had to break wood, and you know, obviously a lot of the sparring was without safety equipment at that time, so you had to get stuck in. You had to be you know, up for it, and you know, ready to take a few shots and give them.
Yeah, well, do you know, it's interesting. Gavin and I talk about this all the time when it comes to sparring. As I think, brutal as it was back in the 70s and early 80s, it actually, people learned how to spar. They learned how to evade.
Yeah.
And you learn how to block with a good guard, because actually, you know, when someone's bony foot is coming towards your nose, if it hits you, you know, regardless how hard they hit you, they're going to hurt you. So you learn very quickly how to get your guard up and get your movement correct.
Well, just an aside, I've been doing something on Facebook for my students, and I've called it old school sparring. And what I was doing, I've been comparing the differences between what they do now and what we used to do. Mm-hmm. For example, my first tournament, I mean, there was no weights.
No,
yeah, you just got in there. There's all the green belts over there, and they just paired you up, and you fought people that were 6 stone heavier and whatever.
There used to be girls and boys as well, didn't it? Sometimes I remember me and Jack used to go into competitions and you used to draw a girl. It was the worst thing, because if you went hard on them, the crowd would boo. And if you didn't go hard on them, they used to beat you up, and your mates used to laugh at you. So you just couldn't win. Couldn't win anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it was, but do you know what? As a small guy and sparring with some of those big guys, one thing it did teach me was how to move and how to block, and how to get out of the way. And really, that was how my style of sparring developed, from the fact that I was used to sparring with some big guys. I mean, I was literally probably, I don't know, 8.5 stone, 9 stone soaking wet, and there were some big guys in there. My first tournament, I had my ribs broken by a guy who was stones heavier than me, but I did love it and I enjoyed it. And it was sort of, it was almost raw, you know, no safety equipment or very little safety equipment, you know, bone against bone.
Yeah, a bit of bumper pads and a shin pad with a bit of a foot protector on if you're lucky.
Exactly.
I can't remember who we were talking to. They were telling us about, I had all this great macho, the old macho dip foam sparring gear.
That's right, yeah.
I thought, well, you must have been really rich or posh, because I didn't have that for about 10 years.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was good. It taught me a lot. It taught me how to move, and you know, and it also taught me a bit of courage as well, because sometimes, you know, when I stood up and they called my name and then he called somebody else's name, I looked up and this guy was like, whoa, look at the size of him. Yeah. Then I just had to get stuck in. And it's really funny because these days, you know, some of my students say, oh, you know, so how can I fight a bigger guy? And I just said, just get stuck in. I said, you know, the bottom line is he's going to find it just as difficult to hit you as you.
You've got to use your attributes, haven't you?
Exactly, yeah. And so that's what I learned to do, really. And there wasn't very many times where I fought people that were shorter than me. They were either, you know, around the same height or much taller. So it was good. It was good grounding.
So can you remember much about your? Sorry, Gavin. Can you remember much about your black belt grading?
Oh, go on.
Can you remember much about your black belt grading?
I remember all of it.
Just some insight into it then, because it's you know, everybody has a different fear to that black belt grading, and you know, I always remember taking my first dan with Kiari, and it, you know, it was brutal because they didn't separate the juniors from the adults. No. And like you say, you know, I was sparring, you know, some big blokes where they were a heavyweight at the age of 10, and you know, I had to break leg technique, hand technique. So that's my perspective. How did you feel?
Yeah, it was. I remember it was funny because I always seemed to go to, because it was in Scotland at the time, in Glasgow, and whenever I went to Glasgow, it was always freezing cold.
It's still like that now.
Yeah, and I remember going up for my first degree, and it was in the old academy, which was like a converted hotel, and the dojang was on the middle floor. And it was absolutely freezing. But as soon as they called your name, you just got hot. Adrenaline just went bang. And I remember he called my name, and there was only a couple of us from the west of England that went up. And I was petrified. I remember just doing line work and patterns and thinking, yeah, I think I'm doing all right here. And then I couldn't. The other thing, of course, is that at the time, I think it was David Walker, who was at the academy, who had the deepest Glaswegian accent you could ever hear, and he was doing the calling. Was
he calling the line work? Oh,
yeah.
That's not how it is.
I think, what? so I'm just looking to the side, thinking, what are they doing? You know, but really nervous, sort of sweating, thinking, I need to look as if I know what I'm doing, otherwise I'm going to fail this. And it you know, and then we went on to things like one-step sparring, which again was brutal. In those days, you know, people were smacking each other and there was people going down, the old person bleeding, all that sort of stuff, which all sort of added to it. Free sparring, again, was really, really tough. You had to get stuck in. You know, there was no sort of holding back, really. And if you got injured, you just got injured. And then the breaking was a case, you know, Master Ree's thing was, I can hear him now, you must break. You know, that's what he used to say.
Again.
Yeah, again. Yeah. So I think we had a choice of, it was leg or hand technique, a couple of boards. I think that was the first degree, because the second degree was high holder at the time. But yeah, I mean, I thought I did okay. You know, as it happens, I passed, and the other guy that went up with me didn't get through. But it was a very nerve-wracking experience, but it was an experience that, sort of looking back on it, taught me again a lot, just to face my fears.
It defines you, doesn't it? I think these these things that you go through when you're younger, especially things like, and for anyone that's never been through a black belt grading, it's character building, and it quite often defines you as a person. There's not many tests that are like that. When you think about things like, for regular people, if you like, doing driving tests, going through, just I mean, like you said, Jackie, you can remember every aspect of your black belt grade. I can even remember the smell. I can even remember the smell of walking in that dojang, and I can remember everything.
Smell of fear.
Yeah, yeah. The dry blood on the door handle was always my favourite bit.
Yeah, well, it was very much like that, and I mean, once again, I suppose because we're used to doing tournaments and fighting with people of all different shapes and sizes, the grading was no different. Not as if they put you in weights or anything. You just fought whoever was next to you, and you got on with it. Yeah. I think as you say, it teaches you a lot. That indomitable spirit needs to be there. That courage. Otherwise you just get swept out. You just you just sink.
Especially in them days as well, because it's not like what it is now. For sure.
No, definitely. So yeah, it was good experience, and I enjoyed the experience. Not at the time, but afterwards, I certainly did. And certainly when I found out I passed, I really enjoyed it.
So talk us through your transitioning, obviously getting your black belt then Ray. When was, obviously once you get your black belt, it means you then go into the black belt men's division for sparring.
Yes.
At what time did you really sort of sit back and think, actually, I'm doing good at this, I'm pretty good at this, and sort of your transition into this as a squad member?
Well, do you know what? It's funny because as a colour belt, and certainly in the early days of my black belt, because at the time, again, it was open weights. I struggled as a colour belt in those divisions. I found it really hard, and I lost a lot. I got used to losing actually a lot, but I enjoyed it. And it was funny because it wasn't actually about the winning. I just loved doing it. I had no expectations at all as a colour belt to win. And also when I got my black belt, people like Ron Sergey was still fighting, Ray Smethers was still there. I was looking at those guys thinking, yeah, I want to fight them, but I know I'm not going to beat them at this moment. It was obvious because they were so experienced. I remember my first fight against Ray Smethers at the time, and he just wiped the floor with me. It was, I remember coming out of there as a black belt thinking, crikey, I've got a long way to go.
I've only just started.
Yeah, I got a long way to go. So it was very, very sort of a huge learning experience. And I remember the second time I fought him, I remember I took him to a draw and then he beat me. And then the third time I fought him, I just wiped the floor with him. So it was like 2 fights later, I'd gone from one position to the next. And that gave me a hell of a lot of confidence at that time.
It's important, isn't it? Because I think a lot of society today is very much do it and be great.
Yeah.
And certainly, having done these, we're coming up to our 50th episode, and we've had some great fighters on. And actually, none of them just start off as great fighters. It's a journey. It's a transition. It's looking at small goals and improvements, and then moving on. And I think the biggest thing is, we talk about losing. You don't win. Yeah, no. But it's not failure. It's a learning process.
Yeah, definitely. It's a process you got, and to be, I always say to my students, listen, to win well, you got to lose a few as well. You got to lose a few, and you got to learn from it, and then you got to put it behind you and then move on. So that's really without sort of knowing it what I was doing. I wasn't that bothered, to be honest, about winning at the time, but I wanted to do well and do better, and to move forwards every time I got in there. And sort of from that, once I'd started doing well and actually beating a few people that I knew were good, I realised that actually I could do really well. And I remember sort of starting to go to squad training, which was at Hinckley at the time.
We were talking to Mike Lambert yesterday.
Yeah.
About the green room, where if your feet aren't even feet aren't tough, they're going to be red at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I remember going out there, and when I tell you what, I remember coming back thinking, "Wow, that was a baptism of fire." Because it was that thing where people would go, "Yeah, we'll show this guy. He thinks he's going to be one of us, does he?" And that's what it felt like. And
there were so many tough fighters. Wasn't there? There's so many tough fighters there in them days, and you talk about, especially think about your division. You know, people like you had Ralph Bennett in there, and you know Pat Carter and
Elvis Parsley,
Elvis Parsley, and there was just so many, wasn't there?
Paul Tarn,
Dave Shepherd.
Dave Shepherd, what's his name? Mills, forgot his name now. I mean, it was like, wow, that was an unbelievable division, the lightweight division. And I remember going out there and coming back thinking, wow, you know, that was. But I was excited. I thought I couldn't wait for the next time to get back up there again.
Until the Friday night, probably.
Yeah. I was so excited, and it was a long drive because it was before the M42 was built.
That's what Mikey Lambert was saying yesterday. He remember going, you know, every Saturday morning on a squad train. He used to get there, and he used to feel physically sick before because he knew that Dave was going to put him through so much punishment. You knew that you were going to be dying for the rest of the day. You know, what I mean, it used to be absolute torture, but at the same time, it was, you know, great friendships were formed in those sort of environments, aren't they?
It was fantastic, and once I started to go up and for want of a better word, get a bit of respect, if you want to call it that.
You've got to cut your teeth with these people.
And people, you know, knew that I was coming back, and they knew that, well, actually, you know, this kid wants it, and he's coming back, and you know, we're roughing him up a bit, but he you know, he's coming back, and that was it. Once I got in there, and it's like I say to my fighters now, they say, "Oh, I want to be really good at sparring." I said, "Well, spar with people that are better than you, then."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, don't spar with people that are easy. You can beat them. You don't learn anything. You've got to spar with people who are going to kick you, okay, and hurt you. And then, you know, you've got to come back and see, well, how can I deal with that? And really, that's what I did. I went out there. I remember I'll come back. My very first squad training wasn't in Hinckley. Actually, it was a first cut, and it was in St Andrews in Scotland. I forgot about that one. And it was under the UKTA at the time. And I always remember, because I went up there. It was a long drive, and we drove. It was like 7 hours or something, because you had Glasgow, then you had St Andrews. I always remember my very first fight was with Tony Sewell.
Oh lordy!
Yeah, so, and I didn't really know him very well, and he sort of said, you know, tension bow, and he start, and he just kicked me. He kicked me.
And then you went flying.
I went all across the room. I was like, oh, and then I thought, right, okay. So I came up, I got up, stood up again, and we started again. And he did it again.
It's quite funny because I remember going squad training as a 14-year-old. My dad used to take me everywhere, and I had exactly the same experience with Tony Sewell. You know, the guy. You know, I'm sure he was taking it light, but I was probably I was a lightweight at the time, no doubt, being a 14-year-old, not much muscle, and it used to be a great respite fighting the lightweights because I had someone roughly. You were all better than me, of course. You had a lot of more strength, more experience, but it was a more evenly matched contest. And then you'd go up to anywhere the middleweights, or in the worst case, Tony Sewell. And I remember he just put his leg out and just tapped me, hit me in the arms, and I was across the hall on my backside. You know, absolute phenomenal strength. And, you know, and I know he was pulling it. God knows if it only wanted to hit me.
Well, exactly. I mean, I keep getting up, and he kept kicking me. I don't know. Dave must have said, "Take it easy, Tony," or something like that. I was thinking, I hope he does. But that was like one of the first times I met him. Obviously, you know, after that we became, well, sometime after that, good friends and so on. But that actually was my very first one. I remember it now. It was a black stripe, and it wasn't until sort of much later because when the crossover happened between UKTA and TAGB at that particular time when the World Championships were happening, I got picked for the team. But I never fought in the UKTA team.
The 88 was it 88 or 91?
No. This is 83.
83. Okay.
This is going back 83. This is very, very, very early.
Was that down Crystal Palace way?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so that was my first thing, and then obviously from there I went into the TAGB, and I remember 83 was a fantastic year for me because every tournament I went into I won. English, British, Welsh, whatever. And as it so happened, it was the year just after that was when we did the trip to Los Angeles. Master Heel chose them. Yeah. So I remember Dave talking about this trip and squad training, and you might get in the team, you might not get in the team, and all that. And in those days, I still got the letter somewhere. I actually had a letter come through my door. I remember thinking, oh, this is a strange opening. It said, "Oh, you've been selected to." I thought, wow, in Los Angeles. I thought, I couldn't believe it.
Better get a passport.
Yeah, honestly, it was fantastic, and I was like, because I honestly thought, well, surely there are people better than me. I can't believe it. I couldn't honestly. I honestly, at that time when I got picked in the early days, I used to think, oh, I'm not going to get picked for this because such and such is a really good fighter. And then I'd get picked. I thought, wow, I can't believe I've been picked. And it was great. And obviously, funny enough, I went to Los Angeles. I shared a room with Tony Sewell actually at that time. Sort of roomed with him, and there was some just a fantastic team: Kim Stones, Kenny Walton, and all those guys, Dorian Byton, and it was just the best thing about that wasn't actually the tournament; it was just the fun we had,
the people.
Yeah, just the laughs, just the comradeship. I remember driving to Las Vegas in the bus; it was absolutely boiling. And but it was brilliant. We went to Las Vegas. Nigel Banks as well was there.
Grand Canyon. I've still got all the pictures of my dad. He's got all those pictures in his album still.
Oh man, still got those. So it was a fantastic trip. I thought I died and gone to heaven. it was just amazing.
You've not got any stories about Jackie's dad then that you can share live on the podcast.
Well, I don't know if I could share them live. Well, I think sort of people can imagine a group of young lads together in a different country. I mean, it was just
carnage. I can imagine.
One big holiday. It was fantastic. Yeah, martial arts sort of came second, really.
So was the Los Angeles trip the first trip you were selected for?
No, I was selected for a trip before that to Germany.
Okay, and how did that go? Because there's a huge difference, isn't there, of being top of your game in the UK, where you know a lot of the fighters, and actually going out onto the international arena and having to. I'm not sure whether you raise your level, but everybody else is at that high level as well. So there's no easy bouts. Yeah,
in some respects, this will sound strange. In some respects, it was easier because you were almost fighting for the team rather than fighting for yourself. And I always like that. I always like doing team fights because I knew my mates were behind me and they had my back type thing.
Yeah.
And for me, there wasn't so much pressure. So to be honest, on the squad trips away, it was nice. It was a bit more relaxing than say even the English or British championships at home because you had the team with you and. You knew that if you lost, Tony Sewell was coming on and he was going to win.
He's going to win the toss and win the competition for you.
Exactly, or he'd go out first and we'd be 2 points up all the time, or something like that. So you had confidence. Everybody had confidence in each other. It was a real good tight unit, and it was literally a team effort. There were no sort of individuals per se. We were all a team.
Yeah. So who would you say your most fierce opponent, your nemesis was? Who were you always battling for a place in the team with?
Early days, it was there was a fight in the Midlands. I think he was with Paul Donnelly. There was a guy called Ian Worrell. Yeah, he was sort of in between lightweight and welterweight really. So it was him initially, and then after that. I remember had Dave Shepherd was sort of coming up in the in the ranks, but he didn't stay very long at my. I did fight him a couple of times and did do well against him, but he didn't fight. He didn't stay in my weight category.
Went straight to welter, really, didn't he?
Yeah, he went straight to sort of welterweight. Wayne Burnett, who was
Tariq as well, probably.
Well, Tariq was sort of at the end of my career, really. In fact, I don't even think I fought Tariq competitively. He'd sort of he was one of the new kids on the block when I was finishing really. There was Ralph Minot. He was and he was cross training between WTF and ITF. So he had a really interesting style actually. He was like a good front leg and good back leg kicker. So it was quite good watching him.
Well, we had Ralph on the podcast a while back, and I'd say it would have been around about that time where he was just sort of preparing for Seoul Olympics as well. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, 88. Yeah.
How did you get on with Alvis Parsley? Because he was another great lightweight, wasn't he?
Oh man, I tell you what. Elvis was fantastic. I mean, the other thing about Elvis was he was a real gentleman.
Yeah, really nice, lovely guy. I really enjoyed sparring him.
Yeah,
as I said earlier, as soon as I got out to welterweight, as a young kid, they'd just beat me up.
Yeah.
Going with the lightweights, I always had a bit of a more competitive chance. But his power in his front leg was phenomenal, wasn't it? And his chamber, but he always controlled it. A lot of respect for him for that.
Yeah, no, I got on well with Elvis, and funny thing is at the time again, he was sort of middle to the end of my sort of sparring career, really. I sort of finished. I didn't finish when I wanted to finish. I finished early because I had a couple of young children, and they needed to know their dad. some guy that used to come in occasionally.
Come in from squad training, disappear early in the morning,
exactly.
Turn up late at night and fall straight to sleep.
Exactly. So when I retired, I think my eldest was 5 or 6 at the time. Richard, he's now 35. So yeah, I thought I need to spend some time with kids, but I was absolutely heartbroken when that did happen. I just thought I could have got a couple of more years in there, but yeah. So people like that, really. There was another guy from, I think he was one of Clive Harrison's students, Asian chap. I can't remember his name, but yeah, there were so many different lightweights, and you knew that you'd get through one round at a tournament, and you were going to have another hard fight.
Hard one, yeah. It was a golden era. Without doubt. It was a really golden era.
Yeah.
Okay, so you finished your fighting career.
Yes.
You took the decision to move on from the TAGB and form Puma.
Sure. Yeah.
So give us a little bit of background on Puma for us.
Okay, yeah. I mean, what I will say is when I finished my tournament career as well, man, did I miss it, first off.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, man. And I actually went into deadlifting. I started going to the gym, doing deadlifting. And bearing in mind, I'm sort of between 10 and a half, 11 stone now. I don't weigh myself. But I went up to about 13 stone on doing deadlifting. I was like benching and doing the big lifts and sleeping and eating, just to try and get that buzz back.
Yeah. It's very difficult once you retire. I retired in 2016.
Yeah.
And deliberately to stop myself going to squad training and wanted to get involved. I just wanted to be involved around it.
Yeah.
I put myself up for a degree just so I knew I committed to something else, and I had to put that time into that rather than wanting to go and train. That's what I love to do, train.
Yeah, and so I understood after a while that I was never going to get that buzz back. I stopped doing. I still do some sort of kettlebells and stuff to this day and whatever, but I don't do anything heavy like that. And
I've seen some of your videos on Facebook up and down in the park.
Yeah, just so I'm back down to sort of normal fighting weight, really, which is quite comfortable. But I think when we formed Puma, Mark and I remember it well because we were sort of traveling in the car at the time, and we were going to our schools, and we decided to do this, and in fact, I mean, it was a fantastic time for himself and me, because I don't know if you know, but we got General Che over to do a seminar the weekend that Puma sort of kicked off in Weymouth, and he agreed to come over, and we sort of contacted him, and it was a fantastic weekend just to meet the founder of Taekwondo, regardless of anything else. But it was just a great weekend. We just decided that from our point of view, it was something that we wanted to do. We felt ready for it, and just thought, let's go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Was that the weekend that you did your 6th Dan grading with General Choi Hong Hai? I understand. I've been doing my research.
It was, and it was the worst day of my life.
Really?
Well, talk us through that grading then, Ray, because that's actually, there's not many people that have been graded by him that are still about.
Well, it was really strange because I was due for my 6th degree, and the guys were going, "Yeah, you got to do it. I said, "No, I'm not doing it. They said, "No, you got to." I said, "No, I haven't got to." I said, "I'm not doing it." I said, "There's too much going on. I'm not ready for it. I don't want to do it." And I was just scared because it was the founder of Taekwondo. I was thinking, why would I want to put myself through that? Yeah. But eventually they convinced me to do it. And I remember doing the grading and just thinking while I was doing my patterns, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? You know, and I remember afterwards I went up to him and I'd been learning my theory for months, like just not because I was doing the grading, but because we were sort of having this new association and we were making a handbook and all that. So I've been learning my theory. I thought, well, I'm ready to answer any questions. So I remember going up front of him in the table and he said, oh, tell me about your education. I said, sorry? He said, tell me about your education from age 4 to now.
I was not expecting that.
No. Okay. So I went to primary school, and I went to secondary school, and I got this, and I went to engineering college, and honestly, and that was it. And then at the end, he asked me a couple of other questions, and he said, "Oh, you must read philosophy. You must read philosophy." So I said, "Oh, thank you, sir. I'll make sure I do that. I'll read philosophy."
Confucius.
Yes, yeah, but it was actually a fantastic experience, and I got to interview him in his hotel room with his dressing gown on, which was quite interesting. I remember going in to ask him, and I had these questions lined up with my microphone and my little tape recorder. And the first question was, "So, sir, what can you tell me? What does Taekwondo mean to you?" And he went on for about an hour.
Oh God! Yeah.
And I kept going, I need to change the tape. And that was like question 1 of 5. So,
oh, fantastic!
But yeah, have you still got the tape?
Do you know? It's interesting. I know I haven't chucked it away, and I've got it somewhere. Where it is, that may be a different story to find out.
You need to get that into a digital format quickly.
Yeah. We can stick it on the podcast as an episode.
Yeah. I'll have to have a look for it. But no, it's fine. He took us out for dinner as well to a restaurant. He said, "Oh, I'd like to take you out for dinner." So he took us all out for dinner. There's a few of us. We just had a great crack. And Master Black was there. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. And Master Black kept asking him these really personal questions. And in the end, you could see his face. He was dropping. And in the end, he looked at him and said, "No more personal questions." And then the table just went quiet. We all went, "Uh-oh."
Start looking into your
He's done it now. He's done it now, yeah.
But yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time.
Sounds fascinating. So what are your plans for the future then, Ray, in martial arts and life in general?
Well, do you know what? As I said, I started martial arts for the fitness side of it and for the self-defense because, Mark and I, we were knocking around together, said nightclubbing and all that sort of stuff. But the reason I do it now is more for longevity. I still love the fitness side of it. I like the way it makes me feel. Like most instructors these days, I've got a cross-section of students from age 5 all the way up to, I don't know, nearly 65, 70 is my oldest student. So right across the age range, male and female, and martial arts has changed because when I started, it was guys in their late teens, early 20s that just wanted to fight, really.
Yeah.
But it's very different now. So my sort of future plans is to keep on teaching, but to try and offer as much as possible to all those different people. To the young ones, the 5-year-olds, some discipline and teach them some. The tenets of Taekwondo to be polite and that respect and so on, and then the older ones, and the teens, they're still looking for self-defense, so to try and cater for them as well. And also, those in their 20s. And as we go up, the older students who want to come there to keep fit and flexibility and, just to keep their mind strong is to cater for them as well. So I think the job as a martial arts instructor, certainly since I started teaching it was about 79. I started teaching, has changed so much.
You've got to be a teacher. You've got to be a mentor.
Yes.
You've got to be a coach. You have to be able to deal with children. You have to be able to deal with parents.
Exactly.
There's so much, isn't there, that goes into being an instructor rather than just standing there. I think the old school way of just standing at the front shouting and calling at people, them days are long gone. You've now got to have a lot more empathy, and you've got to understand, the right ways and the wrong ways to discipline, if you're going to call it that, or not even discipline. Look at ways of rewarding the kids to get the best from them and stuff. But it's certainly changed, certainly from back in the days when we all, obviously started our training, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I also think the you know, what I would call the hardcore fighters are still there. There's you know, they're still there, but there's not so many, if you like, and you have to try and cater for them as well. You know, because a lot of them still want to fight and they still want to get stuck in. You know, so it is a difficult sort of juggling act. You've got to spin a lot of plates. You know, when you're doing this now, I like the challenge, so I'd like to continue doing that. Most people that know me personally will know that my thing is I never want to retire ever. I love what I do. I never want to stop doing it. And you know, if I can teach up until about the age of 90, I'll be happy. So you know, I love doing it, and I love training. My other motivation is to stay fit. I get out every morning in my green dojang, as I call it, and I do my sprints and I get on my push bike, and you know, I do my chins and dips, and I love the feeling of being fit. So you know, there's no reason for me to change that. Yeah, sure. You know, and I did have a bit of a blip because I did have like a lot of instructors of my age. I had a hip operation about 12 years ago. And I think when I left the consultant's office, I was in tears thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do all this stuff. But, you know, I don't kick as high as I used to, but I can still keep
do stuff, and you're in a lot less pain, I can imagine.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So who would you say then, Ray, would be some of your key influences in life? You know, you look back and there's, you know, certain people do certain things or say something. Who are those people that you'd recognise as that?
Well, first of all, I have to credit my mother, who is not with us anymore, but she was a massive influence in my life. And I remember coming home from my well-paid job at Rolls-Royce, where I was getting a lot of money, and telling her that I was going to give up and become a martial arts teacher. And she said, yeah, I think you could, I believe in you, you can do it. My dad went absolutely up the wall. He said, you're telling me you just spent 4 years training and you're giving that up to become a martial arts teacher. I can't tell you what he said because this is going to go public.
I can imagine. I'm sure you're a traditional West Indian family.
Exactly, yeah. But there was a lot of arm waving and a lot of teeth sucking, and, and a lot of stuff like that. So let's just say he wasn't happy. But my mum always supported me, even in the times where it was tough. So she was a massive influence in my life. You know, those days. The other one is my lifelong friend Mark Ogborn. You know, we've laughed together, we've cried together. You know, he's godfather to my kids, I'm godfather to his. You know, we've never done anything without each other, really. You know, it took me a long time to get him to come into black belt tournament. It actually took me 5 years to get him into a black belt tournament, believe it or not. Because I started going to say THB squad 83, and every time I was, come on, you got to go, and you go, no, I'm not good enough. Oh, they got Tony Saul and they got Kim Stones. They're much better than us. Come on, you got to come. Honestly, he didn't get there until 87.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, and then he did the World Championships in 88, and of course they won it.
Yeah.
And then after that, he took off. But honestly, every week I used to come home and say, "Are you coming up with me?" He go, "No." So I used to go up on my own. Honestly,
to be fair, you know, getting up to the Midlands from Bristol, it is a trek, isn't it? It's a hell of a trek. It's a commitment.
It is a commitment, but you know. The other thing was he was a very good cricketer. Actually, both of us were really good at sport as young. So he had sort of he played for Gloucestershire seconds in cricket, and I was also a really good footballer. Did a little bit of semi-pro football as well in my days, but I had to give it up, and I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to become professional. So
just as well, because you don't end up playing for Bristol City.
So that was that, and you know, martial arts then was my only focus. But yeah, Mark was a massive influence in my life. The other one as well was Master Teb Hotwood, and he said a couple of things to me when I was a green belt and a black belt that really made an impact, because I respected him a lot at that time. We used to see him a lot of time. He used to come down and teach us. I think it was a green belt. I was a green belt, and he said something like, you know, one day you're going to be a really good black belt. And I thought, wow, you know, this guy thinks I'm going to be good, and that stuck with me forever. It really did.
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny how these things, these things just pop. You remember it back, and sometimes it could have been just a throwaway comment from somebody, but you remember it and you take it to heart and you think, it's such a nice thing to say. And I suppose going back to what you were saying about Mark, it's almost in a way it's like myself and Jackie. Like I said, we grew up together. We've been friends since we were sort of 4 or 5 years old. We've done Taekwondo together all that time. And you build a really good bond. And like I say, we've got lots of business ventures that we do together. And it's when you've got like somebody you can confide in, throughout your life that you've known for such a long time, and you've got that those common values as well, which obviously martial arts brings. It's great, certainly even things like business life as well, because you know that you can trust them as well, which comes a long way. Like I say with you and Mark and Puma and the life that you've sort of forged between the two of you, really.
Yeah, and I think the other one I would say was actually Dave Oliver, who, when I got in the squad, really believed in me. Or he seemed as if he believed in me. He kept putting me in. I always remember the very first Clash of the Titans against the Warriors.
Right, that was a legendary competition. Legendary.
Yeah, I had to fight Arthur O'Loughlin, who was like 2 weights up from me. He was a middleweight. I was a lightweight. And I remember we're in the change rooms. He goes, I said, Ray, you got Arthur. I went, sorry? He said, you got Arthur. I went, yeah, he's a middleweight, Dave. I said, and he went, yeah. I said, well, he's a middleweight. He said, listen, he's never going to catch you. He won't touch you. Don't worry about it. And he didn't. I got in there because Dave said, just move. He said, he'll never catch you. He said, you're too quick for him. And he was brilliant like that. He could pick a fighter and he'd put you against someone and you'd believe in him because he'd said, right, you can beat this guy. And guess what? You did.
You did. Yeah, no. I've been there. I was lucky enough when I left the forces to get into the team, into the squad, and then onto the team. Yeah. And some of the times, he just says 1 or 2 things in your ear. Yeah. And he believes in you. And again, Kenny Walton, now who's the head coach there. Yeah. They've just got this knack of I think it's great. I think it's man management. Yeah. But it's personality management, and they bring the best out in you.
Yeah. So, I would say, those the people, there's some on the fringes, but again, we were hopefully, myself and Mark, we were going to go to America and do Route 66 and celebrate 51 years of friendship. That's our plan.
Why 51 and not 50?
Because of the coronavirus.
Because of the coronavirus. Yeah.
Let's call it 52 years of friendship then.
Because I think we must speak to each other more than we speak to our significant others. I'm sure they think there's something going on between us. Because
we know that feeling, Jackie.
Because I think we talk to each other 10 minutes. I'll see him at training and I go, I got a phone, Mark. But you just spoken to him. I went, yeah, no, I need to phone him again.
So I call Gavin's wife my virtual wife. Morning, virtual wife, just checking in. Is Gavin in?
But I go down, like at Christmas. I went down to his place for Christmas, and I keep telling him off. You see, because he moved down about an hour and 15 away from me. And I keep saying to him, why did you have to move down there? Why didn't you just...
Why have you left me?
Exactly. Yeah. And he keeps going, oh, come on down. I said, well, no, you come on up. So yeah, we still have a good bit of banter, but we've been good friends for such a long time. So it's great.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up in a minute. So I always get the privilege. Gavin allows me this one thing, don't you, Gavin? To ask our guests, what, given where you are now and the experiences you've had in life, Ray, what advice would you offer to a younger self?
Well, I think that the thing that I always say to my students, and it's a bit cliche, I suppose, but it's enjoy the journey, because it doesn't last very long. You think it is when you're in it and when you're doing it and you're having a great time. But I say to people, enjoy it. That's the first thing. And the second thing I say to them, particularly with things like competition, is take winning and losing the same way. They're both imposters. Sometimes you're going to win, and sometimes you're going to lose. And when you win, you smile and you walk off, and when you lose, smile and walk off. And that's what I would say to everyone. Really, is enjoy the journey. But and the other thing, one more thing I say: take it seriously, but don't take it too seriously. Because you got to enjoy it as well. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I often say to my students, you go to the competition. There's so many factors to whether you win or lose.
Yeah.
It's about performance. Are you doing the right things? Is your movement right? Are you challenging the kicks? Are you overcoming your fear? It's not about the winning or losing, because one day you can fight the best guy in the first round and get knocked out. The next time he might get knocked out and you sail away all the way through the competition and pick up the gold. Exactly. You haven't really beaten the best guys, but that's the look of the draw, and that's how competition should be taken.
Yeah, you just got to enjoy it, and one day you can have the best competition ever, and then the other time it's the worst ever. You get knocked out in the first round or whatever. That doesn't really matter. Just enjoy it, take it for what it is, and just enjoy the journey. Really, yeah, that's what I would say.
Good, profound advice, I think, for sure. So
yeah, definitely. I consider I'm a bit of a self-confessed geek actually, and as well as martial arts, I like people that are not one-dimensional, that they've got other things in their life. I play a bit of guitar, I play harmonica, I sing and play at open mics and jam sessions with some other guys. I love doing that. It's absolutely fantastic. I like to juggle as well.
I got to hook you up with my dad. Then he's big into his saxophone and keyboard. He's been
exactly. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah,
brilliant. I love it.
Do a bit of a jam. Goes down to the Salvation Army with his sax.
Yeah,
he gets together. Obviously not now because we're all in lockdown, but he gets together with his friends and just sits up in his room and jams.
Well, no, that's great. I also ride a motorbike as well, which is I've got a big Triumph motorbike that I ride, and I belong to a few biker clubs as well, which is great because I'm usually the only black guy there.
Yeah, my dad's the same.
So they know me as the Ray, the black guy who rides the Triumph. They don't know anything about my taekwondo or my martial arts at all. So it's brilliant. I go there and I just talk bikes, and it's fantastic. So I think as well as have different things in your life as well as your taekwondo, and then come back and enjoy your taekwondo.
Spot on. That's great advice. Okay, Ray. Do you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Do you know what? It hasn't felt like an interview. It's felt like a catch-up. to be quite honest. That's good. I'm glad it is because I love talking about the martial arts, and it's nice to nice to see you guys, and you guys still doing it and doing the podcast that you do. So I really thank you for the opportunity. I hope it comes across that my passion for martial arts, but also just passion for life in general. Really, I think you've got to.
I think it's definitely come across. The thing is, it's as you know, all martial artists have a story to tell. So we're just trying to use the medium of the podcast, to try and get those stories out of these great martial artists, because they've all got great stories to tell, and we just want that's what the listeners love to hear.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you very much. Well, I wish you all the best with it as well, and I hope
thank you.
I hope it continues to get stronger and stronger. And
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your listening platform. It would be awesome if you could also leave us a review. We really appreciate your valued feedback.
Also, check out our website, themotivatedmartialartist.com. We also have a YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook page, and Facebook group. All the links are available on the show notes below.
We'd like to thank again our show sponsors, skillsconnect.co.uk, the world's leading children's development programme for martial arts. If you're a martial arts school owner or instructor and are looking for some inspiration, ideas or drills for your children's classes, make sure you check the skills out.